You're not wrong. There is a pattern. You're sitting in AP Calculus. The teacher hands back tests. You got an 87. Not bad, right? Then you notice 3 Asian kids in the front row casually sliding their papers into folders without even looking. You already know what scores they got. We all know this. That's the problem. The stereotype is real. Asian students do perform well in math, but before you decide it's genetics or culture or whatever your uncle said at Thanksgiving, I need to tell you something. You're explaining it wrong, and your wrong explanation is doing real damage. When people see this pattern, they jump straight to biology or some mystical Asian brain nonsense. On international exams, sure, some Asian countries top the charts in math, but we never talk about the Asian nations that don't. Those top performers also lead in reading, but nobody's claiming Asians are good at literature. We cherry-pick the data that confirms our bias, then pretend the rest doesn't exist. Domestically, it's the same story. Research shows considerable variation in mathematical performance among different Asian ethnic groups in the United States. Vietnamese students perform differently than Chinese students, who perform differently than Filipino students. The word Asian includes 50 ethnic groups across massive cultural differences. By grade 12, there were significant differences even between Cantonese and Mandarin speakers. Mandarin-speaking girls were 4 times more likely to be eligible for university than Cantonese-speaking boys. About 2/3 of Cantonese boys didn't have grades sufficient for admission to university. If all Asian people were innately gifted in math, we wouldn't see this kind of variation. So why does this stereotype stick around if it's not true? The 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act gave preference to skilled professionals, including many STEM workers from Asia. America needed engineers, doctors, and scientists, so they filtered immigration to get exactly those people. The people arriving were the most educated, most professionally accomplished, specifically selected because they already had advanced degrees, the honor roll of an entire continent. Their kids grow up in households where both parents have PhDs. They have tutors, educational resources, and a culture that prioritizes academic achievement because their parents fought tooth and nail to get here through academics. One person on Reddit said it perfectly. The Asians that emigrated out of China in the 70s and onward were the rich and educated, while the uneducated Asians who are bad at math stayed in Asia. That's selection bias on steroids. Now imagine if only the smartest subscribers from Rice Degree were allowed to join. That's basically what happened. Hit subscribe to become part of that elite group, or don't, and prove my point about selection bias. Mandarin-speaking immigrants came from more affluent families than other groups. They employed more tutors to bolster their children's academic work. When researchers selected high economic status native English speakers for comparison, they scored significantly higher in all academic areas than Mandarin speakers at all grades. Socioeconomic status determines school success. Money and opportunity, plain and simple. Nobody wants to hear that wealth predicts achievement better than race does. That would require us to actually address inequality instead of making jokes about Asians being walking calculators. But Asian culture does bring some advantages to the table. For the Chinese, their number words are remarkably brief. Most can be uttered in less than 1/4 of a second, while English equivalents take about 1/3 of a second. Human beings store digits in a memory loop that runs for about 2 seconds. Chinese speakers can fit more numbers in their heads, simply because the words are shorter. Then there's the counting system itself. 11 in Asian languages is often 10-1, 12 is 10-2, and 24 is 2 10s 4. Meanwhile, English speakers have to memorize that 11 isn't 1-teen and 12 isn't 2-teen. Then somehow remember that we say 14 but 40, without any logical reason. By age 5, American children are already a year behind their Asian counterparts in the most fundamental math skills. 4-year-old Chinese children can count to 40 on average, while American children at that age can count only to 15. That head start compounds. Think about learning to ride a bike. If you start a year earlier than everyone else, you're going to be better at it by the time you're all in middle school. By 3rd grade, the gap has everything to do with confidence and nothing to do with intelligence. And make sure to keep watching, because we will get into the effect of this stereotype soon. But first, more possible explanations. Rice agriculture is skill-oriented. If you weed more diligently, fertilize better, monitor water levels constantly, and use every square inch of your rice paddy, you'll harvest a bigger crop. Working in a rice field requires significantly more labor than working on an equivalent-sized corn or wheat field. While European peasants hibernated through winter, Chinese farmers used the dry season for side tasks like making bamboo baskets or hats to sell at market. Some estimates put the annual workload of a wet rice farmer in Asia at 3,000 hours a year. The average American employee works about 1,750 hours a year. Work those hours or your family's starved. The problem is that cultural memory doesn't disappear because you move to a different country. Chinese culture developed proverbs that still echo today. No food without blood and sweat. In winter, the lazy man freezes to death. No one who can rise before dawn 360 days a year fails to make his family rich. That cultural blueprint got applied to education. Math homework becomes proof you're not lazy. Honoring the sacrifice your ancestors made, ensuring your family's survival in a new country where you start with nothing. Now, how does this cultural work ethic translate to actual performance? Turns out, there's hard data. Every 4 years, educators administer a comprehensive mathematics and science test called the TIMES to students around the world. Students also fill out a questionnaire about 120 questions long and so tedious that many leave as many as 10 or 20 questions blank. Compare the questionnaire rankings with the math rankings on the TIMES. They match exactly. Countries whose students concentrate and sit still long enough to answer every single question in an endless questionnaire are the same countries whose students do the best job solving math problems. You could predict the Math Olympics without asking a single math question. Give students some task measuring how hard they were willing to work. Success comes down to persistence and doggedness, and the willingness to work hard for 20 to 30 minutes to make sense of something most people give up on after 30 seconds. Singapore, South Korea, China, Hong Kong, and Japan top both lists, all cultures shaped by wet rice agriculture and that philosophy of meaningful work. In Confucian culture, there's stress on education, with an approach very different from the West. When Western parents explain why their child isn't doing well in mathematics, they attribute it to innate ability. He's not very good in mathematics. I wasn't good myself. In Beijing, the same question gets a very different answer. He's lazy. Western parents point to DNA. Chinese parents point to work ethic. Only one approach makes you study harder, and the commitment to that work ethic goes even deeper into the education system itself. The school year in the United States is 180 days long on average. The Japanese school year is 243 days. Students in Asian schools don't have long summer vacations. Cultures that believe success comes from rising before dawn 360 days a year don't give children 3 straight months off. American schools built their calendar around agricultural rhythms that no longer exist. Most American kids aren't harvesting crops in July. They're watching Netflix and forgetting how to do long division. Then there's the examination culture. In ancient China, passing exams was one way to move up the social ladder and land a prestigious government job. China was the first country in the world with a national examination system, starting in the Sui dynasty. Today, exams determine who gets into universities and lands government jobs in China. Parents pay for cram schools. One study found that more than 90% of parents in China pay for cram schools, making it a $383 billion industry in 2019. Chinese parents spend more time with their kids on math and counting compared to American parents. So when Chinese kids enter kindergarten, they're often ahead of their American counterparts in basic arithmetic.
You doctor yet?
No, Dad, I'm 12.
Talk to me when you doctor!
So the pattern is real. Immigration policy, money, language structure, cultural work ethic, longer school years, and examination systems all combine to create what looks like a biological advantage. But when you ignore all that and say Asians are just naturally good at math, you're doing real damage. There's this scene from Family Guy. Peter takes a math exam, and while other students pull out calculators, he pulls out an Asian kid, prods him with a pencil, and says, "Do math."
Do math!
Everyone laughed. The underlying message was clear. Asian people are calculating machines. When you reduce an entire continent of people to walking calculators, you're seeing them as machines that compute. Machines don't need creativity, don't deserve leadership positions, and definitely don't belong in the arts or humanities. Calculators handle procedural tasks, not creativity. For Asian people, this creates an expectation. Technical STEM subjects are fine, but the humanities and creative arts aren't for them, boxed into certain careers before you even figure out what you love. The model minority label gets used politically to divide minorities. Asian success becomes a racial wedge, separating them from black people and other groups. The implication screams loud: if Asians can do it, why can't you? Racism disguised as motivation, using one minority group as a weapon against another. This positive stereotype is actually destroying Asian students. Research shows that the model minority stereotype leads to destructive emotional stress. The myth encourages blaming students for failure while imposing significant psychosocial pressure on high achievers. An Asian kid who's naturally gifted at math breezes through elementary school, middle school, early high school. Everyone expects them to be good, so they don't study. They don't develop work habits. They don't learn how to ask for help. because admitting you don't understand something feels like failing your entire race. Then they hit calculus, or multivariable calculus, or real analysis in college. Being Asian doesn't solve the problem anymore. They have no idea what to do because they never learned how to struggle. One writer captured this perfectly. They won math awards in elementary school, aced every class without trying, took the most advanced courses, then AP calculus hit differently. Finding derivatives and integrals did not come naturally. While classmates went to extra help sessions and found study groups, this student thought they were naturally gifted at math, but that idea shattered when they started getting B's on exams. But there actually are systems we could learn from. Longer school years that close achievement gaps, teaching methods that emphasize persistence over innate ability, language structures that make basic arithmetic more intuitive. But instead of examining those systems and maybe, I don't know, implementing the good parts, we just say Asians are naturally good at math and call it a day. We just keep telling the same racist joke and wondering why Asian kids either burn out trying to live up to it or get trapped in careers they hate.